Let's talk about the cult of higher education. The way a lot of students get pulled into the process is through emails. Those emails start going out the second the grades are posted for the SAT or the ACT. And depending upon how well you did on either one of those tests, that will determine how many emails you may get. And if you're a top student, those emails can reach into the thousands, like the 5,000 and 6,000 and more. The initial goal of those emails is simply to get students to respond. Once they get them to respond, then they can capture that address. Because the way that data marketing works is that you may buy a list from someone, but you don't get to capture the name unless they respond to you. The other way that students start to interact with a college is through the college website, which is great for the schools because then they can start tracking the student the second they go to the website. Whether it's the email or the website, the purpose in all of this is to get the student into what's known as the comm flow. It's so they can be in continuous conversation with students so they can get them to the point where they will apply. And those emails can be anything from puzzles to very extravagant websites to, of course, kitten photos. If the student spends time on the website, what the college wants to see is how much time did you spend on any particular part of the website? Did you particularly pay attention to the psychology major, for instance? While students are concerned about whether or not they are going to get accepted, what colleges are interested in is yield. And so that's why they put a lot of attention onto early decision. Early decision is when a student says, if you accept me, I will definitely go to your school. The downside for a student is that the financial aid package on early decision is not usually as good as if you applied regular decision. The balance on that is you get to know that you got into a school. However, because the schools are so concerned about yield, they're really pushing for early decision more than they ever have. And a larger percentage of the overall student body is now being accepted as early decision. The other issue behind this and what it masks is that this means that they are going after wealthy students. All the while the marketing is saying, no, we're not, we're accepting everybody. Another important thing to know about schools, and this goes back to the comm flow, what they are trying to do is to get as many people as possible to apply for the school so it reduces their acceptance rate. So the more students that apply, the smaller the percentage is of the number of students that are accepted. And so while schools used to have maybe 30,000 applications, which was a lot, now they're getting 60 and 70,000 applications because of the Common App. And don't think they've increased the number of people in their admissions office to try and look at those 60,000, because they haven't. I asked my students how long they spent working on the essay for the application, and most of them said they spent a year. Now, bear in mind that what the Wall Street Journal has said is that each application gets about 8 minutes from an admissions person. Do you think all of those essays are being read? And they're certainly not being read if the student doesn't have the high SAT or ACT scores. Okay, so now let's apply the CULT framework to what's going on in higher education. First step in the process is target vulnerable people. Who could possibly be more vulnerable than adolescents? Boys or girls, doesn't matter. They are at a point in their life where they are feeling like they don't know which end is up. And bear in mind, this process of indoctrinating students into thinking they have to go to college starts in junior high in terms of the classes they're going to take and prepping them to take the PSAT. When it comes to luring with deception, students have been made to believe that they have to go to the top school or their lives are over. That is just simply not the case. Those top schools may not be particularly good in the major that you are interested in taking. And quite frankly, some of those upper schools are more interested in their graduate programs than they are in their undergraduate programs. So you're paying a lot of money for the brand and the name and the cult, but not for what you really need. Love bombing is also another important part of this. Every email that students get says how wonderful they are. You're a fabulous student. We know you're going to be successful here. And imagine getting that in 5 or 6 or 7,000 emails. And you're a 15 or 16 or 17-year-old when there aren't a lot of people in your life that telling you how fabulous you are. Today, 94% of high school students believe they have to go to college. This is how ingrained this is in our society. Now, when I bring this up, there's so many people, I tried to pitch a magazine article and everyone's like, no, I don't want you saying don't go to college. I'm not saying people shouldn't get educated, but they don't have to go to college to get educated. And the way the system has been put together as of late is that it is so expensive to go to college that what is happening on college campuses right now is students are having to choose their major based on what is going to pay their student loan back. So is that really the best way to think about higher education? And this goes along with renouncing those who aren't part of the group. Imagine saying to someone, oh yeah, I'm not going to go to college. What do you think the response is going to be? The other thing to know is all of these students that are starting college, they're not all finishing college, and they're not finishing college and ending up with a lot of debt. If you want to know whether or not a school is good in terms of retaining its student body, look for what's known as the common data set and see whether or not students are staying after the first year. The other myth that students are told is if you don't like the school, you can transfer. Well, you can transfer, but there's no money for transfer students. There's only money for the freshman class. So again, it gives privilege to those who have money. The whole thing's set up for people who have money. And it's only going to get worse if the Pell Grants disappear.